All right, Chris, good news. Good news. Panthers didn't lose this past Sunday.
They did not lose.
Let's go. Let's go.
The Panthers did not lose. We did not have to talk about a Panthers loss in Week 7.
We did not. Let's undefeated in Week 7. San Francisco 49ers can't even say that. Let's go.
Oh, take that, CMC. But we still miss you, though.
Yeah, we still miss you because guess what? This team stinks. This team sucks. All right. A lot to get to. Houston's coming into town. Let's get this sucker started.
The state of North Carolina covers 53,000 square miles. It is the habitat of the feared Carolina Panthers. Get dialed in, Panthers fans, for an in-depth look at your team. Exclusive interviews, locker room insight. Let's huddle up for Panthers Playbook. Here are your hosts, Dennis Cox and Chris Lea.
Welcome back to Panthers Playbook. That's Chris Lea, Dennis Cox here with you. Another episode of Panthers Playbook, getting you ready for Sunday's game against the Houston Texans. Right now, no one has been traded yet. But before we get into any of that, make sure you hit the subscribe button here. Smash the subscribe button, I should say, here on 99.9 The Fans YouTube page. You can elbow drop it like Chris is doing, whatever it is that you want to do. And also hit the likes and leave comments as well. You guys have been so great interacting with us in the comment section, leaving your thoughts, whether you agree with us, disagree with us, doesn't matter. We want to hear your thoughts and opinions. This is a soundboard for you all as Panthers fans, as this team still has yet to win a game this season, but it's okay because we didn't lose in Week 7, like we said, start the show. Didn't lose in Week 7.
Will CJ Stroud get a win in Bank of America Stadium before Bryce Young does?
Okay, well, that's going to leave me my first question for you here, Chris, because there's been a lot of comparisons. We're going to get into some of the transactions regarding Jeremy Chin, regarding Austin Corbett, potential trades. We'll get into that here in just a couple of minutes. But I want to ask you this question, Chris. Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson, those three quarterbacks are always going to be tied together because they were drafted in the same draft class. They're all drafted within the first 4 picks of the 2023 NFL Draft. Why does a rookie head coach in DeMeco Ryans, who is a defensive coordinator and a linebacker in the NFL, getting more out of his rookie quarterback than head coach Frank Reich of the Carolina Panthers, who is a former NFL quarterback, been a head coach for multiple years in the NFL, former offensive coordinator? Why does DeMeco Ryans get more right now out of his rookie quarterback than what Frank Reich is getting out of his?
Well, there's a few different reasons. One, let's talk about DeMeco Ryans. Of course, since he is a defensive-minded head coach, was a defensive coordinator before with the 49ers last year, before Steve Wilkes took over. I'm sorry, excuse me. Had to hold in those tears. He has an offensive coordinator that is calling the plays. So he could focus on head coaching. And then another reason is that even though the names aren't as big, the offensive unit that CJ Stroud is playing for is better. Let's just say it is what it is. They don't have as good of a rushing attack, but their wide receivers are getting separation, and his line is protecting him pretty well. I was watching JT O'Sullivan's breakdown of his game against the Saints. And man, a lot of the things that stood out was that against the Saints, Bryce Young was running for his life for the most part. Against the Saints, CJ Stroud was chilling, finding dudes in the pocket. And he's not as pure of a passer as Bryce Young. We found out this past week that out of everybody in the NFL, only Bryce Young has missed. Bryce Young has only missed a wide open receiver once. That's the best out of any quarterback right now in the NFL, including some of the top quarterbacks. So it's not that Bryce Young isn't, we've said this plenty of times, it's not that Bryce Young is playing bad. It's what's going on around him. And CJ Stroud has a defense he can lean on for the most part. And right now, the Carolina Panthers don't have that because a lot of it is because of the injuries.
Yeah, tons of injuries on defense. It is interesting to see that Bryce Young actually, even though the Carolina Panthers aren't winning, has continued to progress, especially over the last 3 weeks. He's continued to grow. And I think this is something that us that cover the Panthers, Panthers fans need to keep in mind is that the success of Bryce Young isn't dependent on wins and losses his rookie season. It's just not that. This whole season is about his growth and his development. And whatever moves that the Carolina Panthers make, whether it's at the trade deadline, which comes up on Halloween, October 31st, so the Tuesday after this game against the Houston Texans, whatever trades, whatever moves that they decide to make then or during the offseason should always have Bryce Young and his development and his future in mind. We talked about that before the season anyway, that even if this team didn't make the playoffs, the success of the season was all built around the development of Bryce Young. And you mentioned about how D'Amico Ryans is being a head coach and letting an offensive coordinator actually call plays. And we're going to see this coming Sunday, the first time in an actual NFL game, not counting the preseason contest. Thomas Brown is going to call plays for the first time. I'm anxious, and I'm really actually excited to see what his game plan, what his style, what his play calling is going to look like. What's he going to draw up in terms of an offensive game plan for Bryce Young? I really hope they use the bye week where the two of them just sat down and said, all right, Bryce, give me the 10 things that you do best. Or like the 5 things that you do best. Give me 5, 10 things, whatever it is that you want to do, like plays
What
that
were
you
you
really
more
like that you do
comfortable
really
doing
well.
at Alabama?
Yeah, exactly. Like what works for you? What are you seeing? I want to know what works best for you, and let's build something around that.
I would hope that they did the same. And going back to what I was saying about JT O'Sullivan, I've been making it a point, not every week, but most weeks I've watched some film breakdown on what's going on with the Panthers from JT O'Sullivan, him explaining a lot of what's going on. And the things that really stand out is one, protection issues, and we'll talk about Austin Corbett, so maybe some of that is alleviated with him coming back. And then secondly, it really is scheme and separation, because it does feel like part of the reason why guys can't get separation is because the route combinations are trash right now. And this is what Frank Reich is calling. When a defense isn't being put, there's no stress being put on a defense, and there's no guessing. There's no remember back we talked about the play call that Parks Frazier and Thomas Brown came up with that had that long 47-yard touchdown pass to DJ Chark in Week 3 at Seattle when Andy Dalton was playing. We kept saying, blown coverage, blown coverage. But what's one of the reasons why coverage gets blown? It's when you put stress on the defense and they don't know what to do and you cause miscommunications, right? There's no miscommunication for a lot of defenses when they're playing against a Frank Reich called game so far against the Carolina Panthers this season. So a lot of that could happen potentially maybe in some games coming up if, Thomas Brown and Parks Frazier are allowed to use what they have in the passing game. So I'm really hoping that that we see some more of that, and that Frank Reich just lets Thomas Brown and Bryce Young just cook. Just let them cook, and let's just see what happens. Because Bryce Young is still, again, I go back to what we found out this week. He has only missed one wide open receiver this year. No other quarterback can say that. Every other quarterback has missed more than one. And when's the last time Bryce had a wide open receiver? He's fitting them in the tight windows. He's accurate. He is accurate. Yeah. More accurate than any other quarterback in the NFL right now.
It's going to be a learning curve for Thomas Brown. That's something that we have to keep in mind. It's like, yeah, he has some experience calling plays at the University of Miami when he was an offensive coordinator there. Yes. He did call some plays during some preseason games before the season. But mostly it was like second half stuff. So this is, again, this is a learning curve for him too. So Bryce is learning on the fly. Thomas Brown is learning on the fly. So we have to keep that in mind when we see, I don't know, maybe some quote unquote risky play calling or, some deep shots that we might not expect at different times. So we just have to, we don't know fully what to expect. I think Panthers fans are just excited at the simple fact that it's not Frank Reich calling plays. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And I think that excites fans right now. Now, you did mention Austin Corbett. We get into some transactions. I know we mentioned it at the top of this episode. Austin Corbett, offensive guard who tore his ACL in the very last game of the season last year, has been activated off the physically unable to perform list. So one of the starting offensive linemen is coming back. So the Carolina Panthers are going to have 4 of their 5 starting offensive linemen come back from last year, with Austin Corbett coming back in to play at right guard. We'll see what the Carolina Panthers do at left guard, to be determined. Not really worried about that. But part of the transactions that the Carolina Panthers made this week, they activated Austin Corbett, like you mentioned, but also Jeremy Ching goes on injured reserve. Giovanni Ricci, tight end / fullback, goes on injured reserve. Etor Gross-Matos.
What's his injury?
Hamstring.
Oh, what did we talk about last week?
A lot of hamstring injuries. A lot of hamstrings.
Listen to last week's episode if you want to hear my questions.
A lot of questions regarding that. So anyway, so we have multiple injuries continuing to pile up, I guess you could say, for the Carolina Panthers. But Panthers did sign a couple guys off practice squads, like an offensive lineman off the Eagles practice squad, a linebacker off of the Vikings practice squad.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about that. Guess what? Those guys probably aren't going to play. But guess what? With Etor Gross-Matos going down and Justin Houston really ain't playing a whole lot either at defensive end. Hey, DJ Johnson, 3rd rounder, rookie, better play a lot. Amari Barno, better play a lot. Guess what? This is an opportunity right now for these young guys. Hey, you know what? Let me show what I can do. Let me show what I can do, and let's see what happens. But either way, this team is just ravaged with injuries right now, especially on defense.
Yeah. It's hard. It's really hard to see with all the injuries going around. I want to go back to Austin Corbett, though. He was one of the big free agent pickups before the 2022 season for the Panthers. And to me, the Panthers' offensive line had one of the better performances last year that I remember in a while with the Panthers, right? And you have 4 of those 5 guys playing this week, against the Texans. And I know that it might take some time. Austin might be a little rusty coming back. So, I'm not expecting him to be, back to where he was. But I know that he was a huge leader on that line. He was big when it came down to the communication for that line as well. So I'm wondering, and that's one of the things I'll be watching, if things will go a little bit better with him there as far as communication, who's getting who, looking at the defense, kind of, saying who's going to block who, where, just different things like that. And so I'm hoping that that at least raises that raises the tide, raises all the ships with that situation.
And I think hopefully gives Bryce Young just more time to sit back and throw the football.
Yeah, that too.
That's really it.
That's important.
That's it. That's really what it comes down to. Because like we mentioned earlier, everything about the rest of this season, to me, isn't about like winning games this year. It's all about the development of Bryce Young. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to develop Bryce Young, in my mind. That's it. That's it. That's your number one focus as a franchise right now. It's the guy under center.
And let's talk about this too with the running game. We saw some stats come out this week where the Panthers' run game is better off of the left side. We know that Ike Ekwonu, his specialty is run blocking, right?
Yeah.
So, of course, it looks good coming on his side. It hasn't been as good on the right side. So I'm wondering maybe if Austin Corbett being there kind of helps that out a little bit more. So we'll see. But, Taylor Moton's already good, had his best year with Austin Corbett next to him. Let's see if that continues this week. So hopefully, like that, it's an effect that has multiple impacts on his team.
Now, we talked about Jeremy Chinn. He's on injured reserve. He's going to miss up to 6 weeks because of a quad injury. Now, there are a lot of conversations about him potentially being traded. Now, I think he can still be traded, though, when he's on injured reserve. But I think this severely diminishes the chances of that happening because we even saw the Philadelphia Eagles make a trade with the Titans where safeties got traded and a couple picks got moved. Now, this is the question that if I have for the Carolina Panthers in terms of their front office right now. Have you identified who you're going to move? Not only who do you maybe want to move, but who are you willing to move? That's the big question. Who are you willing to move right now? We've heard Terrace Marshall Jr.'s name floating around right now. Well, guess what? If you're not playing him, move on from him. But the big name that keeps floating around are 2 of them. Dante Jackson on defense, which I think a lot of teams might actually pay a little bit extra for because corner depth is such a premium for a lot of teams that are contending right now. Just ask the Miami Dolphins, who are without a couple of their starting corners right now. But the big name, Brian Burns. That is the big name right now, Brian Burns. I know you're shaking your head no, Chris, but I think We saw actually Bill Barnwell of ESPN actually put this out about teams or players on teams that would actually command a first-round pick in a trade. He said that Brian Burns would get 2 first-round picks.
I
Two
agree with
first-round picks.
I agree that he would get that. And if you passed on it last year, don't try to do it again this year, because one of the things that we know that, you guys there, the Carolina Panthers, don't have a pass rush right now as it is, right? So now you have a potential star, not a potential, you have a star pass rusher in the NFL, and you have your quarterback of the future. Those are the pieces that you need to build around, right? I know you need a first rounder, but do you need it at the expense of having, trading one of the key pieces that you need for next year? That's just like if you're an NBA team and it's like, we really need to get some guard depth, but we're gonna trade our star center. We're gonna trade away Giannis Antetokounmpo so we can get more guards. No, we're not going to do that. And I think that's something that I think just wouldn't be the smartest thing from a team that's already, to me, made a lot of moves that weren't very smart. Because if you didn't do it last year, don't do it this year. And you've already traded away Christian McCaffrey, who's looking amazing right now.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. It's going to be hard. I think the Terrace Marshall thing reminded me of the Cam Newton situation, where it reminded me where they said, hey, we've given Cam Newton permission to seek a trade. And Cam Newton goes on Instagram like, I never asked to get traded. What are y'all doing? This is a play on words. Like, what is this about? And Terrace Marshall didn't necessarily say that, but he's like, I'm focused on doing what I can do for this team, especially if I can get playing time. So it's going to be hard to move a Terrace Marshall because there's no value. You haven't made him look valuable. Jeremy Chin is injured, but before that, you haven't made him look valuable. The most value you could get out of somebody right now would be Dante Jackson, because you could get, I don't know, 4th, 5th, something like that. Mm-hmm. Other than that, we're talking about 6th and 7th rounders, bruh. Like, you might as well sign a few more people off practice squads at this point if you're going to get more 7th rounders. I think the Panthers kind of missed some of their window to make things happen. They missed some of that window. So at this point, what do you make happen that's worth your while?
I don't know. I think I think you, as much as I hate saying this, I really think you have to entertain the option of trading Brian Burns. I think you really do have to entertain it because guess what?
Then you have to admit that you're starting over then.
I don't. Well, that's the thing. This team tried to skip the start over. That's the problem with this franchise right now. They try to skip the start over. They tried to skip it. As opposed to like tearing it all the way down to bare bones at the bottom and rebuilding. They thought like, oh, we can kind of strip down, but then maybe we can also kind of win at the same time. They kind of tried to think, well, maybe we can tween in there. You can't do that in the NFL. Either you're all in on winning or you got to strip it down. And they tried to not do either. I don't know. I don't know what they were trying to do because I don't think they knew what they were trying to do either. They tried to skip the tear down to 0. And I think that's something that this team failed to do because this team needs a lot of players, not just one, a lot of players. And if they can turn Brian Burns right now, because I don't think they're winning in 2024 the way this roster is constructed either. I don't think they're winning in 2024. Everything in my mind is about 2025 and beyond. And you have to, if you can parlay, if you get 2 first-round picks, who knows if you can make that into even more than just those 2 picks, depending on who you're trading with. You never know, that 2025 first-round pick that you might pick up from somebody might be a top 10 pick. You don't know. But you have to continue to acquire as many assets and pieces that you can to help Bryce Young right now. You have to entertain the option. I don't like the idea of doing it, but you have to keep an open mind on it. And I was actually kind of surprised they turned down 2 firsts and a 3rd-round pick with the LA Rams this last offseason to do that. I was like, 2 firsts and a 3rd? I don't know. I mean, you can get 2 first-round picks for Brian Burns. You have to continue to entertain that option. You really do.
Well, here's the thing that I think is going to be very important. This upcoming season, we have so many expiring contracts for players right now who are currently on the roster. Mm-hmm. Panthers are going to have a lot of money to play with next year.
Sure.
You don't have the 1st-round pick, of course, right? You like to have that. But you have enough money to go out there and sign some guys that can make a difference. Do I think that in 2024 they're going to make a jump from where they are now to a playoff team, or let's say like winning the division? Maybe not, but maybe you could get up to 8 wins, 9 wins or something next year if you make the right amounts of signings with guys and get the most value out of that, because you are going to have money to play with. So I think I look further ahead to that. Like, who's going to be on the open market? How can we go ahead and get our pitches together for those guys? And let's go ahead and get them. And let's focus on putting that tag on Brian Burns and negotiating with him to get a deal done. And honestly, right now, I hate to say this for Brian Burns' sake, he's having a decent season, but it's just decent. So the price may be going down for the Panthers, which actually may work in their favor. They don't have to pay him Nick Bosa money. So we'll see what ends up happening. But I don't think that I believe in Brian Burns. I don't want to see another Christian McCaffrey situation where you trade somebody to another team and they just go somewhere else and be an all-star and people are like, man, why did the Panthers let this guy go? Well, I don't want that to happen again. So keep the guy on the team and build your defense around him. You got Bryce Young, build the offense around him. You've got the offensive line mostly together, right? Probably could, get some more depth there. But other than that, now you get a chance to build your secondary, your linebacking core, and your wide receivers with the money that you're going to have in this offseason. I'm totally against trading Brian Burns. 100% against it.
Best way to we know building long term is draft picks, and the Panthers only have 6 this upcoming draft. And that's not just this upcoming draft as well. Yeah, they don't have a first-round pick this upcoming year. They don't have a second-round pick in 2025 either. Yeah. So in each of the next 2 drafts of your top 4 rounds, like your first and your second, each of the next 2 drafts, you only have 2 picks right now. That's it. Yeah. When you try to look at long-term sustained building for your franchise, you only have 2 picks in the first 2 rounds of the next 2 years. Like, that's it.
If you don't do dumb things like trade up for guys like DJ Johnson, then you could get guys with value that could contribute. Like, what's old boy from the Steelers who got that sack?
Alex
this past week. Is that him? And isn't that who the Steelers got their pick from?
Nick Herbig. Nick Herbig.
Him.
Yeah. Rookie out of Wisconsin.
And if he could have been there, if the Panthers didn't trade up for DJ Johnson when they didn't need to, and he's not doing anything, and now you're scared because Yetur Gross-Matos is going to be on IR. Justin Houston's not doing anything. Marquise Haynes is still on IR, and now you're relying on a project. Congratulations.
Yeah, a project that's almost as old as Brian Burns. Literally like 6 months younger than Brian Burns, which is just absolutely wild to think about. We'll wrap on this, Chris. We talk about just how this front office has managed the roster. Always keep this in mind. They used 11 picks. They've traded away 11 picks and DJ Moore to fill 1 roster spot over the last 3 years. 1. That was for a quarterback. 11 draft picks and DJ Moore to fill 1 spot. If there's a lack of confidence in anything in this organization, it's Tepper and it's Fitterer, the owner and the GM, because right now it ain't working. Because Tepper wants to win right now, and he's so hell-bent on doing so. Well, guess what? Your franchise that you've been around since 2018, since the start of the 2019 season, really your first, your first full year. We'll go ahead and say that. You have the worst win percentage in the entire NFL. For a guy who wants to try and win right now, you have the worst one since 2019. That's on you, Tepper. That's on you.
And the whole time while you're doing this and you're wasting these draft picks, right? You got guys who you want to rush out of here who are doing well in other places. Congratulations, PJ. You got your win. Congratulations, CMC. You got your win. Hey, Deontay Foreman, you're looking good when the Chicago Bears decide to play you.
Yeah, well, there's that. I will say this, though. If Christian McCaffrey was on this Panthers team right now, he wouldn't be doing what he's doing in San Francisco because he doesn't have the guys around him. He doesn't have the offensive line, doesn't have the other talent around him.
Christian McCaffrey is on this team. The Panthers win 3 games by now.
Yeah, and he'd probably also be hurt.
The Panthers are 3-3 right now with Christian McCaffrey on this team. Trust me on that.
Woulda, coulda, shoulda, but
think about it.
Oh, trust me, we could think about it till we're blue in the face. But guess what?
Put
0-6.
him in the slot right there next to Adam Thielen. And
Yep.
tell me that doesn't cause issues with the defense.
0-6. That's it. 0-6 as Chris walks away because he is sad that the Panthers are what they are right now. And I don't blame him. I don't blame him one bit. That's going to wrap things up for Panthers Playbook as Chris actually does come back. We'll have an episode for you all.
I need a drink.
Well,
I'm about to go to the bar in this hotel.
yeah, well, you and every other Panthers fan out there, I can tell you that right now.
I'm in Charlotte right now. Somebody meet me in Charlotte. Let's get a drink.
Exactly. You know what?
Talk about our woes.
Yeah, we can. Yeah. Well, Chris, you'll be in Charlotte on Sunday after the Texans-Panthers game. We'll have another episode for you then. So again, make sure you smash the subscribe button, hit the likes, leave comments. Let us know your thoughts on Thomas Brown, Jeremy Chin, Brian Burns, you name it. Let us know in the comment section below.
Bryce, you have to get a win at the bank before CJ Stroud does. Please. Please.
That was look bad. We'll see you Sunday.